You've probably seen this, the most famous bridge collapse ever filmed.
It stood for just 4 months. And for 80 years, you've been told the wrong reason it fell.
So, what really brought it down?
The reason you're usually given for why it fell? The men who investigated the collapse rejected it back in 1941. And even the film misleads you. The version everyone knows runs too fast, and almost no one who plays it for you knows that. That morning, the 7th of November, 1940, a man named Leonard Coatsworth drove out onto that bridge. He got off it alive. What he left behind in his car did not. Let me show you what really happened out there. They opened it on the 1st of July, 1940. A slim silver line thrown across the Tacoma Narrows in Washington state. The main span alone ran 2,800 feet, better than half a mile, and the deck was unusually thin for a bridge that long. From the very first day, it would not stay still. On a calm morning, the roadway would rise and fall in long, slow waves that ran the length of it. A driver could watch the car ahead dip out of sight and climb back into view. The locals gave it a name, Galloping Gertie, and they said it fondly. People drove out just for the ride, the way you'd pay for one at a fair. They were proud of Gertie. They should have been afraid of her. The thing they were proudest of was the thing that killed her. The first design, by a Washington state engineer named Clark Eldridge, called for deep, stiffening trusses, 22 feet of open steel running under the road to hold it rigid. That design was set aside. A celebrated engineer from back east, Leon Moiseif, gave them something cheaper and far more elegant instead. A shallow deck of solid steel plates, a little over 8 feet deep, slim, graceful, and far too solid for its own good. Because 5 days before the bridge came down, a man in a laboratory had already studied a model of that very deck and written down how to save it. No one installed the fix. 5 days later, the wind came. By 10 o'clock, the wind is up. 40 miles an hour, maybe a little more. Nothing this bridge hasn't stood in before. Gertie is bouncing the way she always bounces. Down on the approaches, some drivers wait it out. Some don't bother. Leonard Coatsworth is one who doesn't. He's driving out onto the span, out past the East Tower, over open water, with his daughter's Cocker Spaniel in the back seat, a little dog named Tubby. Then, a steel band that clamps the main cable to the deck slips loose. Whether that was the cause or just the first thing to break, engineers would argue for years. What happened next, no one argues about. Under Coatsworth's wheels, something goes wrong. The deck stops rolling up and down and begins to twist. One sidewalk lifts toward the sky while the other drops away beneath it. Then they trade and trade again. A long, sickening roll running the whole length of the span. Not a shiver, a heave, about 12 times a minute. The roadway tilting 35 degrees, then 40, then 45, and back. The edge of the deck is riding nearly 28 feet up and down, the height of a 2-story house, and Coatsworth is out in the thick of it. The wheel wrenches in his hands. The car slides on the tilting road, and he can't hold it. He shoves the door open and goes down onto his hands and knees, because standing upright is no longer something a person can do out here. Tubby is still in the back seat. He tries for the car. The bridge throws him into the curb. He tries again, and it throws him off again. And now there's concrete breaking somewhere behind him and no time left to spend. So he does the only thing left to do. He crawls hundreds of yards on his hands and knees back toward the East Tower and the solid ground beyond it. He makes it to the toll plaza, bleeding and alive. A little after 11 that morning, the middle of the bridge lets go behind him. About 600 feet of it, steel and roadway and the whole slender deck they were so proud of, drops 195 feet into the water and takes the car with it. The two towers stay standing, but the fall drags their steel tops back toward the shore, bent past saving. Both would be taken down within a few years. The cables hang slack over the gap. The bridge has been open a little over 4 months.
Here's what the physics class leaves out. The tidy version goes like this. The wind hit the bridge at just the right frequency, matched its natural note, and shook it apart, the way a singer holding one clear note can shatter a wine glass. Resonance. It's a clean story, and it's the one the textbooks still print. Halliday and Resnick, one of the most widely used physics books there is, taught it. So did the public television series The Mechanical Universe. There's a problem with it. Resonance needs a metronome, the same push landing over and over, exactly in time with the bridge's own rhythm. The wind that morning was no metronome. 40 miles an hour, gusting, ragged, changing second to second. It never kept time. The men who investigated the collapse understood that. In their 1941 report, they called the resonance explanation very improbable. Their words. 80 years on, the school books are still teaching the thing the experts had set aside before the war was even over. What actually brought the bridge down has a colder name. A wind-driven, self-excited torsional oscillation. In plain words, the deck was too solid. Instead of letting the wind pass through, the way an open framework of trusses would, it caught the wind, the way a wing catches air. And every time the deck twisted, it met that wind at a new angle, an angle that pushed it to twist a little harder still, back and forth, each swing feeding the next, the whole motion drawing its energy out of a wind that never had to keep time at all. The wind wasn't tearing the bridge down. The bridge was doing that itself and using the wind to do it. Engineers still argue about the exact trigger, the band that slipped, the first hard gust, the precise order of it. And for a long time, they argued about far more than that. One of the three men sent to investigate in 1941 was Theodore von Karman, a Caltech aerodynamicist so central to the study of moving air that a whole pattern of wind-shed vortices carries his name. The board pointed at the air, but on the exact mechanism, its report laid out possibilities and refused to crown one. For 50 years, the popular answer became those very vortices, von Karman's own, until in 1991, two engineers named Bala and Scanlon showed in a physics journal that on the day it fell, the vortices were peeling off far too fast to match the bridge's slow sway. They couldn't have been the push. The bridge, the two of them wrote, excited itself. Even now, the last details are still argued, but on one thing, 80 years of experts have never wavered. Whatever it was not resonance. And no soldiers marched this bridge down either. You may have heard that soldiers marching in step can shake a bridge apart. There's an old story like that behind the order to break step from a bridge in England more than a century before. But Tacoma had no soldiers. It had a wind and a deck that couldn't stand it.
One more correction, and it's about the film itself.
The famous footage, the ribbon in the wind, is lying to your eyes about speed. The camera ran at 16 frames a second. The copies everyone has seen were played back as though it ran at 24. So the bridge on your screen is heaving about 1.5 times faster than it really did. The real Gertie was slower than that. About 12 long twists a minute. Physicists only pinned that speed down in 2015.
There's one more thing the record keeps, and it has nothing to do with wind. An insurance agent in Seattle, a man named Hallett French, had quietly written an $800,000 policy on the bridge and pocketed the premium without ever telling the company he worked for. He was betting it would stand. When it fell, he couldn't hide the policy any longer. He confessed to grand larceny, was sentenced to as much as 15 years, and served about 2. The record keeps one more thing, and it isn't a number or a crime. It's a name. You'll read in almost every account that no one died on the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. And it's very nearly true. Every person who was out on it that morning came home. One passenger didn't. Tubby never got out of the car. Coatsworth tried to reach him and was thrown back before he got close. So did a Tacoma News-Tribune photographer named Howard Clifford, who ran out onto the failing bridge, partly to photograph its last minutes, partly to reach the dog. Which of them got nearest, and whose hand the frightened dog bit, the accounts no longer agree on. The record has already begun to blur, even on a detail this small. What isn't in doubt is that no one could get him out. Then, the span began to break, and Clifford ran, knees scraped raw on the concrete, off the deck, with seconds to spare. The car went down with the bridge. Tubby went with it. And one more man was out there that morning who understood exactly what was happening. Remember the man in the laboratory? The one who had studied a model of that deck and written down how to save it 5 days before it fell? His name was Farquharson, an engineering professor at the university. That morning, he was there too, filming the instrumented span he had tested and warned them about as it twisted itself apart, the way his model had warned it might. The man who predicted it, watching it come true. But the name the record keeps isn't his. Not an engineer, not a politician, a small dog in a backseat. One who trusted the man who had to leave him behind. And even Tubby didn't escape the myth-making. You'll find him written up as the professor's dog. He wasn't. He belonged to Coatsworth's daughter. You'll find him called three-legged or lame. There's no evidence for that either. Only a family story set down decades later, and not one confirmed photograph of him anywhere to check it against. Even the single life this took, we remember a little wrong. The state paid Coatsworth back for what he lost out there. $814.40. A number like that can cover a car. It was never going to cover the dog. Today, the bridge is a lesson. In classrooms all over the world, they freeze the film on its worst second and talk about frequency and wind and the shape of a deck. And they should. The engineers who came after learned from it. And every long bridge you've crossed since is steadier because this one fell. But a lesson is a cold thing to hand to people. And for 80 years, it wasn't even the right one. The textbooks taught the wrong cause, and the only life the whole disaster took was a dog. Most of them never mentioned at all. He is still down there, in the Narrows, under the story. A small dog named Tubby, who was never going to teach anyone a single thing about the wind. That is why I keep the file. So he stays, more than a footnote.